My name's Kristin Beasley. I started my career out as an early childhood teacher at Fresno City College, spent 15 years doing that, studied specifically infant toddler development and became fascinated by resiliency and neurobiology. So I went back to school and did a PhD in clinical psych, which then ultimately ended up taking me completely away from teaching at the college, but I was in Ohio for a clinical internship and a lot of different things. But of course, my passion still remains in the infant development world and how that translates into humanity being a better place for children as they grow up, because ultimately that leads to a better world for everybody. So, and a better world in general. So, I understand that you took a little sheet home that was about breastfeeding. And so, how many people, I will also share this with you. I am a parent of many varieties. I've been a foster parent, I'm an adoptive parent, I have children biologically. I am also a grandparent, which is my yummy all-time favorite job as a parent. And so, yeah, and then I have lots of people in my life that I like to try to parent and boss around. So anyway, that's a little bit about me. Currently, I have a coaching and consulting business, and I also teach for a group of homeschooled kids, and they do this really fun enrichment stuff on the side. So anyway, that's a little bit about me. Any quick questions? Yes?
How do you spell your name?
Kristin. You'll see it up here. It's Kristin, Kristin. Beasley, Beasley. Okay. All right, yes. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah, you can start right there because you'll know how to do that. All righty. So you guys filled out a little something about breastfeeding. Who would like to give me the gist of that? Go for it.
When you say gist, do you mean what we had on our opinion?
Sure. What's your opinion about it? What do you think? Give me an opinion.
Pro-choice. You know, the woman gave birth to the child. We shouldn't have any right to say whether or not you could feed it in a specific type of way.
Okay.
Let the parent do what they're doing and be supportive of it.
Okay. Support women breastfeeding, period. Anyone else have an opinion? The other thing I wanted to say is that you cannot say anything that's going to offend me here. Like, this is all about dialogue, all about communication. We can leave here not agreeing on things and still be friends. Trust me, there are lots of people that we don't necessarily agree on everything, but we can still be friends. So this is really about learning how people communicate about different things and why we think what we think about the things that we do, particularly with children, because most of us jumped into that job without any preparation at all. Somebody just said, hey, what, you're going to have a baby? That's so cool. Here, take this little tiny thing home. And we go, whoa, yes.
Another thing about it is, I mean, you got to be very careful. I mean, it's a natural thing, but out in public, because the way the laws are nowadays, a woman can easily get in trouble with the law for indecent exposure accidentally when breastfeeding.
Interesting. We're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk a little bit about indecent exposure and the purpose of breasts, and how breastfeeding in public is responded to and what people's feelings are about it when they come across a woman who's breastfeeding without being covered up or hidden away or whatever the situation is. Yes?
I think it should be normalized, but I just from what I can tell, it seems that most cultures, not just Western culture, but there's other cultures that will not be able to unsexualize breasts.
That's the way people look at them.
It's allowed sexually, but then it's objectified, differently when your breast is out for your baby's needs, which is the pure need of your breasts in general. But men or women both look at them more sexually and tend to allow that more so than the breastfeeding in public, which is kind of a problem with society at this point.
Right. Super interesting that we have this dual purpose for a part of a woman's body, that it's sexualized on the one hand and used in terms in some ways to procreate. And at the other side, it is the primary nutrients for an infant. And it is by far the exceptional feeding tool for a baby, on not only from a nutritional food standpoint, but also from a bonding connection and resiliency standpoint. So we are confused. We've always been confused about the sexualization of breasts versus the biological purpose of breasts. So we're going to talk about that, and we may disagree and we may agree on it, and all is good. Ready? So I love golden retrievers, and so we're going to start off with them nursing.
I like the
.com. Yeah, I wanted you to hear it. All right, breastfeeding babies. Ready? All right, so who does breastfeeding impact? 45% of new mothers breastfeed exclusively for 6 months. Does that number surprise you?
It seems kind of low.
Seems really high.
It seems low, seems high. Anyone else?
I don't know, I don't breastfeed.
Okay. Does anybody in here know if they were breastfed?
I was, yeah.
Most women in here were breastfed? Okay. Okay, so it actually, it's all about perspective. That number actually is on the rise. So, but is there another part of that question or that comment that strikes you in terms of for the first 6 months? Okay, exclusively is part of that, is that these babies are 6 months exclusively breastfeeding. Surprising?
I suppose so, because some mothers do both, depending on what they
Okay.
do.
So there is that supplementing with formula, but there's also, a lot of people are feeding babies cereal or other food before 6 months. Okay, anything else in that?
I guess 6 months seems a little long.
Okay.
depending. I mean, it depends.
Yeah.
Well, 2 years generally, we try to
Yeah.
go for.
Okay. Huh?
Try to go up to a year nursing.
Okay. Okay, and so so 6 months in my world is like, whoa, you barely just started.
Yeah.
You just barely started nursing. Because in lots of places in the world, women breastfeed 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And if you were to compare the canine teeth, all right, here's where we may jump off into a little different world for a second, but we take primates, our closest genetic friends, and we look at their canine teeth and we look at their nursing practices. We look at their breastfeeding practices. Primates nurse their newborns into childhood to the age of what would be comparable to humans, 7 years. So we say, oh my gosh, if you breastfeed for the first 6 weeks, we're thinking, oh wow, great, you got the beginning, you got the colostrum, which is the first few days of breastfeeding. It's the liquid gold of breast milk, but it's in the first week of after birth. And then we feel like, okay, you got that. Well, great, yeah, you got that, but you're barely getting into the longevity of benefits that happen from breastfeeding for longer than 6 months. So in the grand scheme of things, 6 months is really a relatively short amount of time for the health benefits of an infant. And what you're also going to learn about is the health benefits of the mother. And what you're going to learn about is the ultimate health benefits of our entire world when we support that kind of relationship. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying everybody should breastfeed till kids are 7. We're not in that world. However, 6 months might be premature. In a world where people nurse until children are 7, they would gasp the way we are at the idea that you stop nursing at 6 months. So, let's go. All right. So what are the benefits? Infant digestion. The perfect food in the world for an infant comes straight from the body. What have they been living on their entire prenatal life? Is in utero. So we're just carrying that out into the next part of life. Protection from childhood illnesses. Now this is a super dynamic and interesting process. And we're going to talk more about it in a little bit, but fewer ear infections, fewer childhood illnesses, diarrhea, leukemia, type 2 diabetes, reduces the chances of type 1 diabetes. So there are several things. Now imagine, this all doesn't happen in the first 6 months. This is about an ongoing relationship with that baby and breast milk. And that the process is the breast milk that you start with on day 1 from birth is different than week 2, is different than week 3, is different every single time you nurse. It is a different product. If we took breast milk every single week for a year, look at it under a microscope, it would be different.
Doesn't it change to meet the baby's needs?
Absolutely. Yep. It changes to meet the baby's needs. So breast milk is a dynamic product. It's ever changing, and it's in response to the woman's body and the baby's needs. So there is nothing, it's a superfood. It is the ultimate superfood. So let's, any questions? All right.
I have a question.
Sure.
So, why are we not talking about this when we talk about breastfeeding? You know, if these statistics are available, we never really talk about these incredible benefits. Why do you think we aren't saying those?
So why don't we talk about the benefits of breastfeeding in terms of the research that we have, rather than living in the dark ages in terms of what we know about breastfeeding?
Yeah.
I think that marketing and advertising and the sexualization of women are huge reasons for that. There just is no denying that people have big feelings about who owns women's bodies. These are issues that are brought up on a day in, day out basis in our culture and society from a myriad of targets. We just had Super Bowl. So, I mean, I didn't watch the Super Bowl, however, somebody in here did. And I'm guessing that there were breasts in the commercials.
Yeah, cheerleaders.
In the commercial,
And
at
the
that time, they actually did not like sexually objectify the women in the clothing you would have supposed, and I think maybe it's because of this.
Me Too. Wow. Interesting. So that's interesting. So there is some cultural shifting now, because even at the, was it the Emmys where all the women wore black? Yeah, everybody wore black in protest. And, and that's there's a lot of political stuff shifting right now around women coming together. Now, at the same time, there's a great divide around women and, what this means. Is it really a big deal or not? So, however, I think that the bottom line is that we do not utilize our research. We do tons of research in this world, and we spend lots of money on research, and we don't capitalize on it in real life. The other reason is they're infants, they're babies, they don't do anything. The world doesn't understand the world of an infant or the need of an infant. Right here is where we start making the world a completely better and different place. But if we don't do that in the first 3 years of life, before they're really having serious conversations, we lose major ground. So the gist is that we need to shift our priorities. I'm going to say it at a college. We pay right now a ton of money towards college education. And I would argue that if we flipped the table and we invested the amount of money we put into higher ed into birth to 5, we would get so much more bang for our buck in the universe that it wouldn't even be understandable. We would be so transformed. However, babies don't vote, babies don't talk, and still most people believe that babies are blobs until they say words. Very, 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 very untrue. So, ready?
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
So those were, the statistics are as opposed to formula, or these are just
Okay,
as
so
itself?
yeah, let me give you the gist on formula. So formula is a creation, like it's carnation, the creation. So it is a made formula. That's why it's called a formula. It's not dynamic. It does not have the interchangeability that breast milk has, which means that what goes in comes out. What goes in stays the same, interacts with the body the same. How many people know somebody whose baby is allergic to formula, whose baby, or soy, or needs soy, or whatever, like some alternative? That is all because we're talking about taking machines and asking them to do what this miraculous thing can do. A body is phenomenal. We would not even allow infants, meaning we, like the universe, would not allow babies to be born this immaturely with such an immature brain and high needs, except for one single reason. You want to know what it is? Anyone have a guess?
Slavery?
Nope. Every single animal on the planet is born more mature than a human infant.
Like horses can just start walking.
Horses can walk. Giraffe, they walk. Elephants, they stay in utero for 3 years, I think.
So that would create a bond and have like a more nurturing aspect of it?
No.
I don't think women's bodies these humans can handle more.
It would be pretty traumatic on our health system. However, it's this. We're bipedal. We walk. In order to be upright and stand on our 2 feet, we have got to deliver a baby. It's the maximum our hips can handle in terms of delivery is around 10 pounds. Now we know that there's always been a bigger baby or a little bit, whatever. But in general, the human female pelvis can manage to birth a baby that is approximately 10 pounds, hence requiring humans to give birth at this premature stage. So if we took our research into effect and went, oh yeah, that's pretty wild, we should really do something to protect these little babies and pretend like they're still in utero for another 2 years, what do you think our world would look like? You think we would just say, oh, here you go, take your 6-pounder home and good luck, which is kind of what we do. So, questions, comments, concerns?
So I'm sorry. So is this compared to formula, this stats, or is this just breast milk by itself, like not comparison? It's just
Formula, as clear as I can say it, has no comparison. The research, you could do 10 dissertations comparing formula to breast milk, and they're not even the same product. It's like saying it's not even this good, but I'm just going to use it as an example. It's like saying chocolate milk in a carton that's already shook up and blended is the same as powder in a stirring. So it's like they're just completely different. So, or like powdered milk is the same as milk that comes out of, like straight out of the cow. Yeah. So, yeah, no, this is absolutely specific. None of this happens with formula. This happens if babies are formula fed, they have higher rates of ear infection. Because if babies aren't breastfed, they're formula fed. Like that's the only choice. We have these tiny babies. One of the reasons that people in third world countries do breastfeed till children are 5, 6, 7 is because there's mass starvation. And if you had the choice of nursing your baby at 5, 6, 7 years old to keep them alive, because your body would do that because it's so phenomenal, you would totally do that. Like we would all choose to nurse our children to whatever age they were if that would keep them alive. So, and that really is, it's not like, oh, hey, I think it's cool to nurse a 7-year-old. In this country, we don't need to because we have nutritional food available to most, you know.
We think we're technologically advanced, like on a scale that's probably not very accurate. Yeah, we've been able to clone a sheep. If we clone humans, we can, you know, mass product them to, you know, do labor for us or whatever the case is. But the Egyptians, for example, the pyramids of Giza, they're mathematically correct with the stars, the Orion's belt. They have their own energy, natural energy on the inside. Like they put up like I forget what it's called, but it gives off this electricity.
Mm-hmm.
And like we think we're super ahead of our time, but like that's just it. We're not. We're actually either backsliding or we're at a standstill. And like I'm looking at this and I'm just like, you know, half of these things shouldn't even be around.
True.
And we're getting these new viruses and syndromes and like MS.
Yeah.
We don't even have a cure for MS.
No, we don't. We don't have a cure for a lot of things. And so absolutely, like we think we're technologically advanced in some ways, and in technology, actually, sometimes we are more advanced. However,
We're the rest of
in
civilization.
humanity, with civilization exactly, we're not really meeting our potential. So how long is long enough? We started with this. So the WHO, which is not the band, it's the World Health Organization, recommends 6 months of life and a combo through 2 years. Okay, so the World Health Organization knows if you say feed your baby exclusively breast milk for 3 years, everybody's going to go, yeah, forget that. So they have to go with what's going to be socially absorbed into the cultures, into our culture. So infants who are breastfed for the first 6 months only, okay, so we're talking about the minimum benefit here. 72% lower risk of hospitalization for lower respiratory tract. Ever heard of RSV? Know how many babies die in the hospital in the winter because of respiratory disease? Too many. 64% risk for non-specific gastrointestinal tract, rotavirus, or any kind of virus really, like anything that causes diarrhea, loose stool in a baby, which puts an infant at very, very, very high risk of dehydration, which then leads to death, can lead to death. 58% reduction in intestinal infections in preemies, which cause like the intestinal tract to die. So why would we not feed a preemie of all groups breast milk in order to support their total intestinal tract? 27 to 42% reduction in allergic diseases reported. So we know we live in a place that has high allergies. Guess what? Breast milk is dynamic. It works with what we give it. So if you live in an environment where there are lots of allergies and pollens and all kinds of stuff, your breast milk, if you're a woman, is going to create antibodies that then go into the baby's body and build antibodies for them in order to prevent or reduce allergy. So, okay. Maternal benefits. This is not a one-way street by a long shot. This is not like, oh yeah, I'm just going to do this for my baby and I have no benefits. Guess what? Any woman who's ever breastfed a baby, we are now at lower risk for breast cancer. We are now at lower risk for ovarian cancer. We get to our pre-pregnancy weight faster than if we take babies off the breast early. because it takes more than 2,000 calories a day to nurse a newborn baby, which is much higher than a regular caloric intake for most average women. So type 2 diabetes risk and postpartum depression, we're going to be talking a lot more about postpartum depression here shortly. It absolutely supports bonding and attachment. And I'm showing you this picture with a bare breast because that's why breasts exist. So mothers and infants sleep more. They've done research studies on sleep, and when babies sleep with their mother and nurse on demand, babies get more sleep, mamas get more sleep, everybody is happier, healthier, and better off. So it's also just cost effective. Why pay for something that you don't have to pay for? Why would you pay for something of less quality when your body is making something that is so phenomenal and can't be replicated? Okay. Yeah. The law in California, I think you said something about, women can get arrested, and absolutely, women have been arrested for exposing their breasts to feed their babies. However, in 1997, seems probably like a long time ago to you guys now, I actually had a baby that year and was breastfeeding in public as necessary. I'm going to read it to you straight up. It says, notwithstanding any other provision of law, a mother may breastfeed her child in any location, public or private, except the private home or residence of another, where the mother and the child are otherwise authorized to be present. That means I can't go into your house and breastfeed my baby if you say, I don't want you in here breastfeeding your baby. I can't go in the men's restroom at Target and breastfeed my baby because I'm a woman and I'm not allowed in a men's restroom in Target. However, now we have lots of gender-neutral bathrooms, so that doesn't even matter. But, yes.
So basically saying if a business or a store says breastfeeding is not allowed, then you can get in trouble for it, basically.
Basically in California, if you breastfeed, you are allowed to breastfeed your baby publicly anywhere that you are allowed to be publicly. You want to sit on that bench out there and breastfeed? You want to sit in this class and breastfeed? Nothing can happen.
Yeah. As long as unless there's a sign that for the business says no.
No, there is no sign. That sign is like saying
Like your own house.
privately owned in your house. In somebody else's, like I can't trespass into your house and then breastfeed my baby, which I wouldn't want to do anyway, so we're probably good. But this woman at one point in time, prior to 1997, somebody could come along and say, oh my gosh, your breast is offending me and I'm going to call the police, and the police could come and she could be arrested for indecent exposure.
So glad that changed.
So glad that changed, exactly, yes. Now the interesting thing is we're talking about California. This is not necessarily the case in every single state, and there is no state laws supersede federal law at this point. So it's a very generic rule around the federal law. No, state supersedes everyone. But this is our law in California. Yes. Okay, so things people say about breastfeeding. It's fine to breastfeed, but only if it's private, because it is your boob. It's fine to breastfeed as long as you cover up. Or it's fine to breastfeed, but my baby was allergic to my milk. It's fine to breastfeed, but I didn't have enough milk to produce to keep my baby going. Okay, so these are all things that people say, and this is not a criticism of the people who say these things. This is a criticism of our culture and society of delivering these really radically wrong statements. This one, I didn't have enough milk. Milk is produced in the body by the amount of sucking that is done by the baby. So as the baby sucks, that triggers in the body, the woman's body, how much milk to produce. So we have to let that milk production go down, let the baby suck pretty much on an empty breast, but then that increases production and then we have enough milk for that next fuel stage of development that they're going to be going through. So it's this waxing and waning process, and if you've asked any woman who's ever breastfed, you know that their breasts are like, oh my gosh, I'm going through this, my baby's growing because my breast milk is like overwhelming, or my baby's in a bit of a lull and the breast milk is kind of recedes for a little bit. So it's an ongoing back and forth process. My baby was allergic to my breast milk. This one is phenomenal to me that so many pediatricians say this to people, because this is like saying this product that we make in a factory with machines that has all kinds of artificial products and contaminants and things in it is not as good as something that my baby has basically lived with a version of in utero during the entire pregnancy. It's almost impossible for a baby to be allergic to breast milk, and I've had so many people in my career say the doctor told me my baby was allergic to my breast milk. It's something else, I guarantee it. Yes.
My friend actually, who I interviewed for a homework assignment, her baby was allergic to everything else except for like the longest time, because it was like an intestinal allergy only, and so for the longest time she could only drink breast milk.
Right.
So like my friend had to come to work and like do
Yep,
all this stuff.
absolutely. I had a highly sensitive daughter who had reflux and was really sensitive to every kind of food that was introduced, and I exclusively, we went and like exclusively breastfed for 6 months. I exclusively breastfed Lainey, who's now 24, till she was 12 months. So like that was her, like that's all she had. Like, oh, I'd give her a strawberry, she'd light up with an allergy. Give her,
I think my friend, her baby had to be breastfed for up to 14 months.
Oh, yeah.
Because eventually she was able to eat certain foods, and now she's about like 3 years old and she can eat what she's supposed to eat, fruits, vegetables, the proper stuff, just not bananas.
Right. So when women are told your baby is allergic to, you're allergic to, the baby is allergic to all these things out in the environment, but the one thing that they're not allergic to is the breast milk. The very, very, very last thing ever that should be put on the table in terms of being the toxic allergen is breast milk. We need to investigate much more seriously if we have a baby that we're trying to pull off the breast, because remember all those serious illnesses that we are now putting them at risk of, as well as the risks that we're putting women at. So we need to really think long and hard before we take babies away from breast milk and put them on other foods. So yeah, excellent point about, go ahead.
Some women, they stop breastfeeding because sometimes some children teeth real early, and they're like, nope, they don't want to get bit. Like me, I was about 6 to 8 months.
Yeah.
And I started teething, and my mom said, it's done.
Yep. Any mom who has ever breastfed has been bit, probably more than once. And there are strategies for teaching babies. Remember, primates and humans in other countries actually breastfeed babies all the way through their molar development. So that means babies are smart. They're so much smarter than we give them credit for. They can and do learn how not to bite. If you take a breast away from a baby when they bite, they learn really quickly. They want the breast. That's a comfort for them. It's a very, very nurturing relationship tool, as well as it's a feeding source. So either way. So all right, so we have next. Oh wait, I wanted to say this, I'm sorry. Bathrooms. Women are often like, oh no, we don't have a nursing room, but you can go why don't you go eat your Big Mac by the toilet? Really? Is that where you want to feed our most beautiful, precious babies? Heavens no, that is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. That's my saying, and that is cuckoo. So, all right. So, toxic transmissions through breast milk. This is another thing that gets sort of tangled up in the messaging. And I actually saw recently that there's a new product where you can test breast milk for alcohol in the blood. So like you test your breast milk and it tells you what the blood alcohol is of the breast milk, which I think is fascinating, and it's a fascinating marketing move, and I'm not going to comment any further on it than that. However, in utero, if I drink a scotch and soda, that goes into my utero, it is fed into the placenta, and it is recycled. It goes over and over and hits the baby like 20 scotch and sodas in utero, where I'm getting one because I'm out here, but they're trapped in here. So through the placenta, through the umbilical cord, they're getting whammed with whatever it is, methamphetamine, cocaine, heroin, weed, alcohol, whatever the toxin is, over-the-counter medication, prescription medication, whatever it is, they're getting whammied in utero because of the way the body is. Because of that, protection is actually like a capsule of poison. Now,
Do not waste my boob juice. Breast milk from mama with love.
yes,
Pumped with love.
boob juice.
So,
Breast milk, however, is fed through, like it goes through this filtration process. So I'm not going to give you the exact numbers of how much, but every person is different. Just like some people can drink 10 scotch and sodas and probably be really, really drunk, and other people will be passed out. And, you know, people metabolize alcohol and drugs differently. However, the way alcohol and drugs are metabolized through breast milk is like through a filter system. So 20% of the toxin, whatever it is, will come through the breast milk. So that's not really, if you're going to pick one or the other, drink while you're pregnant, drink when you're nursing, drink while you're nursing. Because you're getting a much, much, much lighter transmission than you are in utero. So that's just something that people need to understand, that there's a difference, and why this is such a gigantic risk in terms of drinking and other toxin exposure during pregnancy. All right, so this is my favorite slide, and this is my favorite baby, and this is my daughter's breast. So that's a weird app that you can get on your phone. So this is my beautiful, phenomenal granddaughter. And so I use this as the reciprocal magic of breastfeeding, because this is why I think breastfeeding is so phenomenal. If you have a baby that's well, meaning healthy, not sick, they don't have the flu, they don't have rotavirus, they just are well, happy, good, go, breastfeeding. And mama is well, good, woo, go. They're passing each other back and forth through their breasts, through the saliva, sends messages to each body and says, this is what I need. Okay, let me make that happen for you. You get a baby that's sick. Now we have a baby that's got the flu, and I'm well, or mama is well, but baby has the flu. By putting that baby on the breast now says, I'm sick. Oh, you're sick. I need to do something differently. Let me take that flu bug you have. Let me work up some medicine internally, some flu bug antibodies, and let me feed it back to you. Sick baby, well mama. Feeding the baby the medicine the baby needs in order to get well. Ill mama, well baby. Still okay. Mama's sick, baby is, mama is sick, baby is well. Don't feed the baby, mom is sick. No, everybody stay in bed, feed the baby, because now baby is exposed to a body that's fighting the illness in her body and building antibodies to get healthy and strong again, giving that back to the baby and saying, okay, baby, don't get sick, because here I'm going to give you the medicated breast milk, medicated in terms of antibodied to whatever that illness is, back to you. Ill baby, ill mama. Here's what I got. Here's what you got. Let's put the bodies together at work. If nothing else, when you are sick and feeling terrible, the one thing that you want more than anything is that loving connection, and you need the food source. There's nothing better to give a baby than breast milk, so you put babies together. Sick babies and sick mamas, at least they're together and not, they're at least in the emotional sense they're connected, and the bodies are still working because the baby's body is telling the mama's body what it needs, and the mama's body is working overtime to help her heal, but also deliver the medicine to the baby for baby's healing. So that's the magic, dynamic, reciprocal relationship between breast milk and women and breasts. So I know that's not super sexy, but it really is pretty magical. So questions, and do you have any thoughts about where you started with this conversation and where we are right now? What's your big aha?
Well, I had a question.
Sure.
Since, pumping's an option, especially when you're not with your baby,
Sure.
if you're going to provide the baby with breast milk, do you have to just have them latch, or can you just pump?
Pumping is absolutely 100%. If it is, the question is pumping as good as latching on breast to baby contact? Certainly, pumping is better than doing something different. If latching on is for some reason a problem because mom is working, mom's away for whatever reason, maybe mom really is sick and is hospitalized, absolutely pump, pump, pump. Pumping is better for women, and pumping is better for the baby. So breast milk.
You can still get the attachment and your
Absolutely. You're not going to not have, hello, many of us were never breastfed, and we're highly attached to our parents. And we're all attached to, many of us are attached to our fathers or our fathers who were here. So, and they didn't breastfeed us. So it's not about just breastfeeding. However, the thing that happens when you actually allow a baby to latch on and use that process, there is a communication system in terms of, I need more, I need less, I need more, I need less. So you're kind of managing that more in an electronic sense, and you're doing more of the work in your brain than just happens naturally and organically with the baby in the body. However, I would never tell a woman who is pumping, don't pump, or you're bad because you pumped. Absolutely not. Pump. It's great.
Does that chap or feel does that chap the nipple or feel as weird as
Nothing feels normal at the beginning in terms of nursing. If you ask 100 women, oh my gosh, how'd it feel? Did you feel weird? Yeah, you feel weird. It feels weird to have somebody, like a newborn baby. Number one, you imagine they're going to just put their lips on it and milk's going to come out. It doesn't happen. They have to inhale your entire breast, which is super weird. And there's this very distinctive sucking motion that happens in order to pull. If you've ever, this sounds weird, milked a cow, it's kind of similar. You don't just go, meh. It's like, okay, so think of that happening in a breast. It's a whole different with a mouth and a baby. It's a tricky process which gets people uncomfortable, and then we move away from it. But in the grand scheme of things, it's really quite normal. And babies will, from birth, if we just set them on a mama's tummy, will crawl right up the tummy and latch on all by themselves naturally if we don't interfere.
So cows, heifers, whenever they have a calf, they will go to town until they have growth hormones and stuff in the heifers, and they get huge, fast kind of thing because of the milk and the mass amounts of milk that they produce.
And the hormones and the the stuff that they inject into it, but yes, okay. People would get huge like that too.
Can that be something similar for women if you are pumping, because your body has to play catch up, I guess, or make more for the next round kind of thing?
do you mean do women have to eat more?
No, I mean
No, if you pump out till you're dry.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so the question is,
will make more the next time?
the question is, if you pump, will your body make too much milk the next time because you pumped too much out and then all of a sudden it's all confused? Sure, you can never make too much milk, okay? So if many women are like I don't know, I would say in my perfect vision of the world, women who pump, if you pump enough milk, you feed your baby that amount of milk. If you have too much, you either throw it out, I know this is going to freak people out, or you share it with somebody who needs it, because guess what? Remember those preemie babies who are left in the NICU who do not have access to milk? Now we have a source, and the interesting thing is that human milk and babies, it's dynamic. That milk, even though it's from a different woman, will have a dynamic response to that body, which is why historically we had nursemaids. Wet nurses, yes. So we could take each other's babies. Women are the ultimate caregivers. So if I need to go do this job over here, we can leave all of our babies with Mary, and Mary's gonna nurse every baby. And guess what? And during the time of slavery, same thing. Women would give their babies to the maids to breastfeed, because guess why? The beginning of that, I don't know if it's the beginning of it, but certainly the contribution of the idea that if you are nursing a baby, it's not sexy. And so women wanted to pass that job off to somebody else.
Okay, is there a way that if you adopt a baby, and you didn't have the baby yourself and blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
And you want a nurse, is it true that all of a sudden my body will start producing for this baby that I didn't deliver?
It is true. The question is, if a baby comes to a family through adoption, can the non-biological mother produce milk to feed that baby? And the answer is absolutely yes. It takes a lot of work. It is a process, and I didn't do this, but it requires a lot of stimulation of the breast in order to prep it for milk production and lactation. It also, it's a process. I think there's even other medical interventions that will help to produce. Mary?
One of the medications that we actually use for reflux in young children is used to help promote milk and lactation for moms who've adopted.
Okay.
So it's kind of one of the things, how when they're doing research on a med and they use it for this and then they turn left because it does these other things, that's one of the things they found with Reglan, that it actually is a med they can use.
Okay, so the question was, so what they found is that if you use the medication that is used for reflux in infants, or that it actually does help with stimulating milk production. So interesting, not easy, but definitely doable. And so, yes.
Question?
Sure.
Babies who are nursed, solely nursed, versus babies who are formula fed feel different. They're
Meaty.
they have a different texture, and I can always, when I touch a baby out, if I see a baby out, I can always feel
If they're breastfed.
if they're breastfed or formula fed, almost 100% of the time, because babies who are nursed are squishier. I don't know, know how to say, but they feel different.
So do babies who are breastfed versus formula fed feel different? And the answer is, universally yes. The answer is just yes. If you pay attention, and if we were to line up 10 bottle-fed, formula-fed babies versus 10 breastfed babies, breast milk-fed babies, we would be able to, you would really strikingly be able to tell the difference, because there is I just will use this really formal term, mudgy. They're like mudgy, and they squeeze differently. I don't know how to explain it either, but it's a health, it's almost like, this is how I view it in my brain, is I think that their cells in their body take in the milk in a way like a sponge would. It's so easy and natural that it just takes it in, and so their body is just more open to that product than they are to the other. I'm going to stop the, I want to say thank you so much for listening to this presentation. And then we're going to continue to have questions. If you want to have some more question and answers, I'm just going to, I'll still take them. If you want to leave questions with Mary at any point, I will respond to them. And I think,
I want to address one thing with that. Okay?
sure, I'll address one more thing. Yeah.
So one of the things we hear in society is that breastfeeding is really helpful for attachment and bonding. Do you
Okay.
have a response to that?
My response to that is that there are, oh yes, the question is that we hear in society a lot that breastfeeding is very helpful for attachment and bonding. And so would I respond to that in terms of what does that mean? And my response is absolutely, of course it is, but so is just holding your baby. But so is picking up your baby when they cry. But so is making eye contact with your baby. So is reading storybooks to your tiny, tiny newborn infant, even though society says, oh, they don't understand. You read 15 minutes a day to a newborn and their IQ will be 20 points higher than it would if you don't. Do you know what 20 points higher is the difference between mental retardation and average intelligence? Mm-hmm. That is a phenomenal one-step thing you can do with a baby to transform their lives. So absolutely, is breastfeeding like this great attaching experience? Yes, but men never breastfeed, and men are absolutely connected to their babies. And so how do they do that? That comes from this emotional connectedness and touch and massage and being available to people emotionally. Because the only way we communicate in our first few years of life is through our body, our touch. We do not have words. That does not mean you don't have memory. Don't be confused or lured into thinking that you don't remember something because you were a baby. You absolutely remember it. You just don't remember it in words. You remember it in your body, which is why when something terrifies you and you have anxiety but you don't know why, it was because that fear, whatever it was, happened before you had a word.
Actually, in the last, I think it's the last 15, 20 years, they've actually made a device for the father to breastfeed their child. It's a setup where they can take the milk from the mother, put it in it, and have the father learn how to do it.
Yeah, they have taken that. There is a new product on the market where they take a artificial breast and you put breast milk in it, or even formula, I mean, whatever, and dads can nurse their babies that way. I personally think, great, fine. I'm going to grab you. I think it's totally fine. I don't necessarily think it's necessary for anyone to feel like they have to spend the money on something like that, just because you can just do this. You can do this with a bottle of breast milk, and it's pretty much the same thing, because no baby is going to, like, babies just love that connection, and they need it. Their whole body is saying, I need this.